It's beautiful. So we walked up, ran the giant wine cellar, indoor golf, and it was crazy.
Hey, I think so. We signed our papers and got the deposit. Now, it's on her to sign and then I'll get the surveyor out. It's not, she told me that, if there's, somebody that's interested in the house. So, I don't know if it's a fit, I don't know. But she did say that she wants to be, she wants everything to go ready. Yeah. Yes, I'm so excited to see the process. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Nervous. Thank you. Nervous but excited.
Okay, I would like to call this regular town board meeting of November 9th to order. Can we please stand and pledge to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are starting tonight's meeting with a couple of guests. As we've discussed over the last several months, our community choice aggregation program has been suspended due to the withdrawal, let's call it that, of Columbia Utilities. This forced all of our residents in the program back to the default power supplier, Central Hudson. The current Central Hudson rate is nearly 17 cents per kilowatt hour, which is more than 2.5 times the rate we had under our community choice aggregation program. So tonight I invited representatives from Jewel Community Power here to discuss the possibility of entering a new CCA agreement and ways we can protect ourselves from our residents from a repeat of the situation we found ourselves in. So Jessica Strombeck is here, and I think that's Glenn Weinberg right there. And if you guys want to just come up to this microphone, the floor is yours. Hi, Glenn.
Hi, that was, I never had an entrance quite like that. Good evening, thank you Supervisor Whitten and the rest of the town board for having us in today. So my name is Glenn Weinberg and this is Jessica Strombeck. We're from Jewel Community Power. So we're your community choice aggregation administrator. And we wanted to come today to talk about the next steps for the CCA program. Maybe I'll just start to see if, are there questions from the board or particular things you'd like us, we have an agenda of course, but just want to see first if there are specific, questions or issues that the board wants to cover.
So, well, I have a comment that since this whole thing went down, I've got a lot of phone calls from a lot of our residents, personally. And a lot of these residents were the ones that were already on the fence with the way it went. Some of them actually tried it and they kind of went into it. I know it wasn't your fault, I understand the backstory of it. But I think I'm gonna go publicly at this point and say I'm not in favor of it at this point from the overwhelming calls that I got from residents. Regardless, they felt that they were pushed into it, and I voted for it, the 2 times. So I was in support of it. And then when this all went south and stuff like that, it just kind of added a lot of negativity back, that they kind of got a bad taste in their mouth on that. And I'm still waiting. I just think I finally got, because I went on it too. I said this year, the first year I didn't, and I went on it. And I think I just finally got a mailing of my bill from Central Hudson, because I was on hold.
Yeah,
for
the Central
like a couple
Hudson's billing
months.
issues have nothing to do with this.
Well, no, but it was because of the way it was, so they had to recalculate and they had to refigure into it. So I just wanted to go on public right up front that I'm not in favor of this going forward.
So I think people know how I feel, and this isn't really a debate. I really want you guys to be able to present to the community, but my feelings on it is even if the CCA went south, as it's been said, we were all saving a lot of money as compared to Central Hudson before it went south. And so I think what I'd most be interested in is finding out what safeguards we could do moving forward that will prevent this kind of situation from happening again.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be looking for tonight.
Excellent, yeah. Okay, so so that's actually, a perfect, so as you know, the most recent CCA contract has now been, is now over, and we are looking forward to the next contract and thinking about exactly those questions. What can we do? So the first thing is that the contract itself performed exceptionally well against the Central Hudson rate, right, to your point, right? So the folks that were in the program saved a lot of money while it lasted. Yes, it didn't end the way we wanted it to, right? And there are things now looking back that as we move forward, we're going to be very much more conscious of in a way and be able to structurally address them. So that's really first. So first, we've really taken a very a close look at the contract and tightened up the contract in every place where we can see where we could potentially prevent something like what happened with Columbia from happening again, and also sort of having additional disclosures and other ways of trying to get forewarnings that something like that might be coming down the pike. However, I should be clear there that when you have a counterparty whose intent is to breach a contract like that, right, they can do that, right? So it's going to be difficult to draft around that, frankly. So the other piece of that is also really taking a very long look at the counterparties that we are willing to work with and shrinking that pool in such a way that we can be very confident that the supplier on the other side of that contract is somebody who has a long, incredible track record of serving these programs in New York, and B, has a balance sheet that is not going to be at genuine risk from a contract in which they're out of the money. Because that is what happened, right? Because customers were saving so much money, it put the ESCO on the other side of the contract in the opposite situation, right? Where they were losing, right? And they couldn't withstand that losing. So we say, okay, well, as we go forward, A, we better take another look at that contract, and B, we better be very careful about who we contract with on the other side. However, there are also some structural things that we can do to address that very conflict of interest. And that's really what we want to talk to you about that today in some detail, to introduce the idea of a broader program that is not, that takes the advantages and the benefits of the existing model, which is a fixed rate, right? Which allows customers to have certainty about, and again, if the utility's not billing you, you don't have certainty, right? And that is a challenge that right now Central Hudson is having a lot of problems billing customers. That is completely independent of the CCA, as Supervisor Whitten said, but it ends up getting conflated, and there ends up being, for the customer, all they know is they didn't get a bill, they didn't get a bill, they didn't get a bill, and then they get a big bill, right? And so it's easy to conflate the two. It's easy to conflate the CCA program. We understand that, right? So we're working, one of the things we do all the time is work with customers. They call us, they email us, they come to our website. We work with them to help them get some sort of clarity. But the fact is that, the billing issues for Central Hudson persist, and they are out of our control, right?
But isn't that the billing issues are because of this whole thing happened and everything was thrown back onto their lap? on there, you know.
No, Central
No,
Hudson
the-
had huge billing issues for every
No, well, trust
customer
me,
they had.
I can vouch for that. I do a lot of work as a trade ally with Central Hudson, that there's a lot of issues there. But with this whole thing, because I kept going on, I says, well, I haven't got a bill. And then I called up and they're like, well, because you were on this other program, so now they're trying to reevaluate and bring everything back and consolidate. is what I was told.
Central Hudson is under
Excuse me.
Can you use the mic?
You gotta, I'm sorry, otherwise the
Just
people
to
at
say,
home-
Central Hudson's under regulatory and legal review for the way they're representing their billing issues. So the regulator's going to be coming back to them with that. They don't like to say that they have billing issues.
Could I
Yeah.
just jump in with a quick question?
Yeah.
This may be a silly question, but for what it's worth. Who exactly is Columbia Power?
It's a good, fair question.
Well, their supplier,
Are they a middleman? They buy power and then they
No,
sell it? Is that how it works? Or do they actually generate power on their own?
well, so some suppliers do generate power on their own, and sell it, but for the most part, the role of the supplier in the CCA is the first one, right? So they are the wholesale interface, right? So they are buying power from various sources and on the wholesale market, and then they are selling it to customers, right? And there's a whole list of products they have to buy and compliances that they have to check and interactions with in terms of data and billing that they have to go through with the utility in order to do that. Columbia was fully registered, compliant, had a track record of doing that, so all of those boxes were checked, right? And of course we did diligence on their financials as well. And they represented in every way that they were prepared. They had, and they answered all of the questions correctly. Of course, we were, they weren't necessarily, they don't necessarily have the same profile as some of the much larger suppliers, right? So that was a concern, of course. But, at that time when the bid was awarded, right, they had checked every box, for us through that process and through that diligence process, and they had won the bid. They had come in with the strongest bid. Of course, in retrospect, knowing now what we know, of course, we wouldn't have contracted with them. But it's very difficult to know when a counterparty is just, is misrepresenting or is prepared to do something like that. It's difficult to.
Did they do this with other groups at the same time or only?
No, they have since our contracting, they have been dinged for other things, unfortunately, but not this precise that I'm aware of. I don't know, not this
They can't
precise.
operate in New York anymore, right?
What's that?
Didn't they lose their license to operate in New York?
Well, they didn't lose their license. What they did was fail to pay to keep up their capital reserve, which is necessary in order to operate on those wholesale markets. So because of that, they're not able to. But it wasn't as if it had been revoked.
Okay.
Right? It may be, but it hasn't been. So on that side, that is an unfortunate outcome, of course, to a program that otherwise had performed quite well, right? And not to discount the unfortunate piece, but but in the end, the customers were returned to Central Hudson, which is where they began, and the billing issues actually started in August of last year, right? So we're now on something like month 15 of the Central Hudson billing issues. So it predate, so in other words, those are independent of, there are interactions, of course, with CCA customers coming back in, as you said, but the billing issues were there before and have persisted since. So they really are independent of the CCA, although again, we acknowledge the fact that it is easy for customers, or it is natural for customers to say, these two things must be related to one
What I don't
another.
understand is, I don't think the billing issue is an issue with the CCA or anything. It's just typically, sorry, my mic wasn't on. Typically, if they're offering a fixed rate, and they're not going to the supplier and also getting a fixed rate, that's how they're going to get themselves in trouble. I'm a director on an organization that sells supply to Central Hudson, and we have a contract that we provide Central Hudson a fixed rate of 6 cents a kilowatt back to the supplier or back to the delivery. And so why wasn't that part of their obligation, is to lock in a fixed cost so that they didn't get themselves into this problem where they have a problem? Second is, typically with large contracts, you may require performance or a surety bond, that if they do default, that there's some recourse in order to go back to.
Yep. And these are exactly the sorts of things. Now, the first piece is, again, they represented all of that, right? That they had done that. Now, the second thing is on a bond, that's not historically been something that has been an obligation to serve these types of programs, not just in New York, but really anywhere. But it is the sort of thing precisely the sort of thing that we're looking at. And you're not the first person to say that, right? Why couldn't that be the case? So again, going forward, that's something that could be integrated into the contract that would hold the supplier more accountable for holding up their obligations, right? So these are exactly the sorts of things that we're looking at. However, again, we're also looking at how can we fundamentally address the issue, which is if you are not fully hedged, right, or somehow have full security, price agnostic, that when the customer is winning, that is the market, you agree upon a fixed rate when you contract. And after executing that contract, the wholesale market goes way up, which is what we had, right? In that case, the customer is winning and the supplier is losing. So there's a fundamental conflict of interest that we're looking to address in the next round of CCA that goes beyond contract drafting or obligations and goes beyond kind of counterparty risk. It goes to a fundamentally different approach where we are bringing the supplier onto our side of the table. And when I say our, I mean the customer, the municipality, and even us as the administrator. And the way that we are looking to do that is by fundamentally changing the way in which they are financially incented. So today, when suppliers bid into this, not just CCA, but any energy contract like this, when they bid in to win something like this, they are competing, yes, on price, but they are also building in a risk premium. Right? Any long-term fixed-rate contract, they are building in a risk premium to guard against these sorts of outcomes, and they are also building in profit margin for themselves. That's how they make money. Otherwise, they can't operate. Right? So all of that is actually in the price. Now, when you have sort of stable conditions, all of that is fine. The fixed price stays stable and stays relatively competitive with the variable rate, and customers on the whole, because of the collective buying power, tend to make out pretty well. When you have extreme conditions, as we have seen in the last 12 months, these sorts of things start to really be pressure tested. So what we'd like to do is change that incentive and the way in which the ESCO, the supplier, is compensated entirely, and have it be a fixed per kilowatt hour rate, that a fee, much like the way that we earn our administrative fee. So our incentive is to keep customers happy, keep the price as low as possible, keep the program going as long as possible, and we want the supplier to be similarly incentivized, right? To keep the customers happy. So they are paid so the longer the program goes, the longer the contract goes, the more customers that want to participate in the program and stay in the program and not opt out, the more money they will earn, right? So that means we are all aligned in our interests. We all are similarly incentivized to keep the price low, to keep the price stable, and to meet the goals, which for one is to purchase, for instance, 100% or as close to it, renewable energy as well. So that's really what we're looking to do, and there are other details to that sort of, new approach that I'm happy to discuss, but maybe I'll just sort of stop for the moment and see if there are because there may be other questions about either that or anything else.
Let me ask you a question for, as Jewel goes, what is, I mean, obviously you guys got to make something on it to cover your upkeep going on the process. And like I said, I supported it the first 2 times around. I don't think, and I got a lot of flack, and I said I'd go on it this year myself, because I feel I got to lead by example and see how it really is. But I don't think the town, after being on, having 2 years of this, should be in the business of forcing people to have to opt out. I do think I spent years, my family was in the oil business buying futures for product oil. So I understand the concept of buying in advance and trying to, you're betting low, betting to buy in futures and to keep the price down. It's a gamble. Sometimes you win. There's other times we've had different costs where you buy high and you end up selling low and you still have to buy your futures back in our business the way it was. I just don't think from the residents that have contacted me directly, and I've taken a lot of flack for voting for it for 2 years, that after this went on, I probably would have felt a little differently, but I guess the way it is, I mean, there's no way to guarantee, I guess, anyone can kind of pull this. You guys are in it to make a profit, or, however Jewel's getting funded, there's an incentive for you to get all these towns on board. But I just can't see this being I think people should have the right themselves to choose to opt in or opt out of something and not us forcing them. If there's a way to make it as they can opt in rather than forced opt out, then I could say I'd support that. But I just can't go in after 2 years of hearing a lot of different people on this. And now they're all the continue, well, something happened here. And you're right, there was a cost savings. And I do agree with that point. And I want to be clear to, our town, our members, that there was a cost savings. But there's always the risk on that locking in. And I don't think the town should be involved in making that decision for people. Let them make their own decisions on that. And just
now, and to that, and that's and that's obviously fair, right? Now, to that point, though, right? It is an opt-out program, so it becomes the new default. Now, one thing is there was already a default, which is Central Hudson, right? Right now, the price in Central Hudson is 17.3 cents per kilowatt hour, right? So that's the default, which is more than 10 cents higher than what the CCA price was. So that could be hundreds of dollars in a single month, right? To ride that variable, and you don't know whether next month it's going to be 27 or 7. You really don't. Nobody here does. And we look at the markets all the time. It is very much unpredictable. It's a black box. Customers don't understand. When they do get a bill, they don't understand where that price comes from. That's the existing default, right? So when you move into town and you call to set up, Central Hudson is going to set you up with that service. So CCA, the value of CCA is that the town can say, that service isn't good enough for us as the default, right? Yes, we understand that it's a step we're taking on behalf of our residents, and yes, of course, they have the right to opt out anytime, freely. It's our job to make it easy to opt out, but it is still a step that the town is taking that they haven't traditionally taken. It's been the utility company. However, we think that a stable rate, a strategically and thoughtfully procured stable rate that aims to procure renewable energy is still a fundamentally better default service than what you're currently getting from Central Hudson, right?
And I agree with the idea of having something stable, but if you guys believe in it so well, then I feel it should be, and I know we're one town out of many towns that go into this program, but I believe if it's such an easy sell on that and showing that, then it should be an opt-in, because then everyone should say, hey, if I'm going to lock in, you'd probably get, if you're not forcing people, you'd probably get more people to sign up if you're able to sell that point and put the letter out there, and this is what you're going to save. And I think that's the fundamental problem that I have is the choice and being thrown into something on here.
And it's fair.
I respect.
It's fair, but we would you can't because of the certainty, right, for the supplier that's bidding on it, you can't get that same price. If you say, we're going to offer this to the town and maybe 2% will sign up, maybe 20%, we're going to send them a letter, we'll see what happens. We would get the same price that you or I could get just going to that ESCO.
Because you're basing it off of futures, just like when we used to buy oil, 42,000 gallon contracts per contract on top of our normal base. And so you got to base it on a contract to get that rate. And if you don't get that number, you're not going to get the rate. So the question is, when Columbia kind of whenever all this pulled out, were they getting the numbers that came in? And this is a question that people got to ask, because I looked at this in depth. Were they getting the numbers on there? And they're saying they weren't getting the overall numbers that they were supposed to get of residents signing on here, and there was more opting out, and they walked away from it because they knew they were going to pay on the backside on whatever their contract was.
I really want to, I want to answer your question as candidly as I can, but I don't want to speak for them, of course. But what we're seeing, I'll just say it this way. That could be, however, what was also going on was that the market was going like this, right? So any hedges that they had would have inherently been, of course, more valuable then at that point in time than they were when they purchased them. And secondly, if they were not protected, right, they were losing that money to serve those customers. They would in fact want less customers to serve if that were the case. Not to dismiss your point, but the thing is when you look at it in conjunction with the market conditions of the time, what seems like there seems like there are more likely scenarios. I'll just say that, and I do have to be a little careful with how we talk about it, so I hope that you understand that. But so
Well, I understand
there
you're
are
trying
reasons
to protect, and I'm not trying. I don't want to cut because
Yeah.
I want you to make your statement, because obviously, and the people can have a conversation with us. But I do know. I understand. I don't understand the electric side of it. I understand electric from what I've seen. I understand how futures work, and that's what they're basing everything on is futures, and that's the fundamental problem. So they're committed, and I think they've seen that the number was changing the other way. They were committed in, and like when I used to buy so many 42,000 gallon contracts per year, I still had to buy my X amount, so many 2 million of gallons a year of oil with my regular allotments. So if the numbers were different, I was buying these contracts at a higher number. It wasn't cost effective, so I want to try to jump. You can't do it in the oil business. And that's where I think we had a problem, where we're seeing the numbers going up. And that leaves it vulnerable. And unless there's a way that they can sign in and find out, iron out those contracts, there's always going to be a loophole. And that's the concern, and I don't want to put our residents in that situation again, myself.
Understood, and that's exactly the problem that we're aiming to address. As we go forward. Yep.
May I ask, what are you thinking of going forward? Like, you did come here to rehash what's happened. What's
Though we are, we of course want to be able to, but yes. So that is, so what we are thinking going forward is in fact a new approach where we fundamentally change the way in which the supplier is compensated, right? Which addresses this conflict of interest issue. The other thing about that is that while the rate, what we're looking to develop is a model where the rate remains stable, but for shorter periods of time, to avoid these sort of long-term lock-ins where we create these difficult commercial situations for counterparties, right? So the rate in this case would remain stable for 4-month periods at a time, so seasonally, right? So a sort of summer period and so on and so forth, where in those 4 months, the rate remains stable. It's like a fixed rate contract. And then it adjusts, right? And it adjusts to the next 4-month period, right? So it remains much more stable, 4 times more stable than a monthly Central Hudson, which is 17.3 and then 6.2 and then 22.1, right? Which is what we have today. So it remains, it's much more stable than that, but it gives that safety valve, right? Both for customers and for the suppliers, right? Such that if the market moves, that fixed rate, the next seasonal period, can also move to adjust with it. Right? And over time, the goal is that over time, we will be contracting directly with renewables renewable power plants, both existing power plants and new renewable power plants as they come online. So New York has a very aggressive renewable energy goal. There are hundreds of projects in the pipeline that are going to be coming online in the next 12, 18, 24 months. We want to be able to contract directly with those resources at a fixed rate, right, for a little bit longer terms, and be able to layer that into what we're offering to customers. A, for the environmental renewable benefit of the product, but B, to make that product sort of organically more stable over time. So it is not a futures bet, so to speak, but it is backed by real contracts directly with renewable generators that over time make the rate that the customer sees more and more stable and less responsive to the volatility of the market. So that is so without going into too much detail on that, that is exactly what we are building now, actively. Yeah.
I want to talk about the letters every 4 months.
Yeah, so and what that will mean is that if the rate is going to be adjusting every 4 months, that means that every 4 months, customers will get a letter or a card in the mail, which will say, here's the next pricing period is about to begin. Here's what the new price is going to be. And as always, if you want to opt out, here's how you opt out. And here's the website and the phone number. And so 3 times a year, people will be given an opportunity to reevaluate that.
So now they're opting out, having not once a year, but 3 times a year.
3 times. They could always opt out 365.
No, I understand that, but you're putting it out because the rate now is going to change 4 times a year, because that's how you're trying to get around the futures, is by having 4 times a month.
So in the interest of time, which I think we've blown through that, but in the interest of time, what would be our next steps?
Yeah.
Because I don't think we have to commit for months.
And that's exactly where I was going.
We don't need to commit to this, but are there steps that we can take so that we can see a closer to end product?
In order to keep that option open, right, we have to begin a public outreach period, right? Now, that does not mean any commitment from the town. It doesn't mean you have agreed to do this. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that we will begin, as we have several times in the past, begin a period, a regulatory requirement, which is to go out into the public and do events and public information and go on social media and get in the local press and do all those things to say, the town is exploring this. That's it. The town is looking at this, and this is what the town thinks the benefits may be, but there is no, there's no final decision that's been made. It is but it is a requirement. So until you've done that, you can't go forward with any new CCA contract. So what we're asking, and we've talked to all the Hudson Valley group, and we're getting started relatively soon. What we're asking is that to kick that off, is that you put a little short paragraph on your municipal website, on the town website, that says just that. The town is exploring the possibility of a CCA program with some very high-level information, and then, of course, ways of learning more. And that's all that we would need right now, just to simply keep that door open. If you don't do that, then then you can't see what that next process brings. So that is the ask for tonight, and that is the next step that we would need to keep that option open.
Are we willing to at least do that? Keeps the door open, we can see what the numbers turn out. Okay. So, yeah, that's what we'll do. I suppose, Jessica, there's probably language from you that you can give me for the website, and I'll pass that on to our website guru.
That sounds great. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll send it over.
All right, great. Thank you so much
Thank you
for your
for
time
having us.
tonight. Thanks for all of the explanations to the community. I know it gets a little tense sometimes, but thank you.
We're happy to do it. I honestly, there's no, and I'm happy to talk to you more, and we can dig even deeper into it. It really is. It's our pleasure.
All right, great. Thanks for coming.
having us. Have a good night.
You bet. You too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to read at time and a half speed. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the October 11th, 2022 Town Board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the October 13th, 2022 General Fund Workshop. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the October 19th, 2022 Special Town Board meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. I make a motion to approve the minutes of the November 2nd, 2022 public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Aye.
All in favor? You second? All in favor? Aye. I have a strong feeling there are people here that would like to discuss things on the agenda, so I am going to make a motion to open the meeting to public discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll give everybody about 3 minutes, please. There'll be a discussion period at the end of the meeting as well. This one is for all things on the agenda tonight. So if anybody has comments to make, there's the microphone.
I'm going to read this. Katarina Maksianova. So exactly a week ago, I asked you if you intended to defend the town in the Article 78. You promised you would. Today, it is very clear you're going to negotiate with Cornerstone, and you believe that changing our town law is the solution to this problem. I think the problem is that this for-profit corporation with hundreds of employees has blatantly and knowingly violated our town law for decades without any consequences. Their actions show they think they're above the law, at least any law they don't like. When Cornerstone bought the property from the owners of Rhinebeck Lodge in 1997, they knew fully well they were a non-conforming use and could only have 68 beds. They had it in writing from the town in black and white. And they were told repeatedly by the town officials over the years that they could not increase the population. Did they appeal this determination? No. They just went ahead and increased by 50% anyway. When they got caught and received a violation notice last August, did they try to address it? No. Instead, they threatened the town and wrote a letter saying they are not subject to our town code. The town proved them wrong. When the Zoning Board of Appeals determined that they, in fact, could not increase their population and have to go down to 68, what did they do? They sued the Zoning Board of Appeals. And through the process, they accused residents of this town of baseless ethic violations and tried to elicit support letters by telling lies to anybody who would listen, claiming that this community wanted to shut them down. And now I assume you are going to sit down with them and try to work out a solution with them. But who are they? Do you know who they are? That's a real question. Do you know who you're talking to?
This can't be a conversation.
Is it Zarin office? Is it Raplonsky? Is it Bachner? Is it Tom Puzo? Is it the employees? Or is it the future owner? I assume you know they were in the middle of a sale when they got the violation. Have you met the future owner? After this meeting, I'm going to send you some articles so you can read up on him and his company. But anyway, I would not be surprised if Cornerstone and their lawyers were already consulted and provided input on this proposed amendment. Just to be clear, I, for one, am opposed to any increase in the density of this facility under any circumstances. I just hope that people who actually live here get at least as much consideration as this out-of-town corporation with deep pockets. And finally, I hope the volunteer members of the ZBA have been consulted after all the effort they put into the interpretation. They are the key respondents in this case. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. My name is Lee Lefkowitz. I'm from Zarin and Steinmetz. I'm an attorney for Cornerstone. I was not originally planning on speaking tonight, and I'm happy to keep it short. I just wanted to quickly respond to some of what was just said. My understanding is that what's on tonight's agenda is really just setting the public hearing on this matter and the amendment. So respectfully, I don't think that this is really the time for discussion of the amendment itself, really, its substance. I'll briefly respond to say that I don't think it's accurate to say that Cornerstone was violating the law. I can get more into the substance of that, more into the substance of the ZBA decision in the Article 78, but I'll keep it brief and say that the purpose, in our view, of this amendment and what the ZBA did is to clarify what the law is. The ZBA, which you can consult, believe that they were constrained by their interpretation of the law that prohibited any increase in bed count. And the purpose of this amendment is to clarify that a pre-existing use can increase its bed count without losing its pre-existing condition and its rights. So I won't get further into it because I understand that next month would be the opportunity for the public hearing. So I would just ask that your board go forward with that and allow the public hearing to take place next month when the issues can be fully fleshed out and we can respond to them more fully. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I just wanted to briefly respond to that and just make sure that the posture was understood. Thank you.
Anyone else? I make a motion to return to the regular order of business. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Supervisors' comments. The Clinton Town offices, Highway Department, Justice Court office, and court will be closed for Veterans Day holiday on November 11th. The Clinton Community Library will be open that day. Town offices and the library will then be closed again on Thanksgiving and the day after Thanksgiving, November 24th and 25th. The Town of Clinton Food Pantry at the Pleasant Plains Presbyterian Church is conducting a food drive for the Thanksgiving holiday. They are accepting traditional Thanksgiving side dishes, canned goods, and non-perishables. Donations can be dropped off at the side door of the church at 2 Fiddlers Bridge Road or at the town clerk's office from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Donations will be accepted until November 21st. The town supervisor's office is hosting a holiday toys drive. We are collecting new unwrapped toys for children any ages through December 2nd. If you would like to receive any toys, please call 845-206-1668. If you have questions about donating toys, please call Kathy Gallinger at 845-266-5721, extension 130. The Recreation Department is partnering with Pine Plains to offer Clinton residents an opportunity to join the Ski and Snowboard Club. This will include 6 Saturdays of night skiing starting January 7th for $132. Lessons may be added for an additional $84, and rentals may be added for an additional $132. There is also a night skiing season pass being offered for 4 nights per week for the whole season for $169. These are all discounted rates you can get by joining the ski club. To join, please contact Liz Tegmeyer at, I'm going to read an email address, lizteggt@gmail.com. You can also visit the recreation page of the Town of Clinton website, where that email address also resides. The Town of Clinton tree lighting ceremony will be on December 2nd at 4:30 p.m. There will be a parade of fire trucks, an appearance by Santa Claus, refreshments provided by the Clinton Community Library, and a special ceremony to be announced later. And finally, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge Marge Tompkins and Town Clerk Carol Mackin for their volunteer work with the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Both Carol and Marge assisted in hanging and displaying ribbons, not only in the town of Clinton, but in Poughkeepsie as well. Carol also ensured that this town board proclaimed the month of May Mental Health Awareness Month in the town of Clinton. Over the last few years, there's been a drastic increase in the mental health crises, especially with COVID, and NAMI tries very hard to recognize all of their volunteers that assist in all different ways. This year, Carol received an award from NAMI and a letter of thanks from State Senator Sue Serino. And on behalf of the town of Clinton, I would like to also express my thanks and appreciation to Carol Mackin for her volunteer efforts in our community and others in helping to make sure people are not suffering alone and that they receive the help they need and deserve. She didn't know I was going to do this. End of comments. Town board reports. What do you got, Elliot?
Okay, the planning board met October 18th. No, I'm sorry. Correction there. October 1st and the 1st and the 18th. Okay. Anyway, looked at 4 applications for special permits for erosion control, a subdivision, a short-term rental, and a ground-mounted solar energy system. The ZBA met on the 27th and reviewed a variance application. Also had a lengthy discussion after the meeting about the plumbing in accessory structures. This is an issue that's been in front of the town board, in front of the planning board and the ZBA for many, many years. without any clear resolution as to whether it is permissible or not and under what circumstances. So what the zoning board would like us to do as a town board is to resolve this issue so they have parameters to work with going forward. And since we are in the process of revising the zoning law, this seems like a perfectly reasonable time to do it. So it is one of those issues that we will revisit when the time comes in one of our zoning workshops and try to get a handle and basically rationalize the process, because at the moment it tends to be a little bit here and there, and it does need to be made more definite. Anyway, so that's it for my reports.
Catherine?
Well, you took my one announcement.
Oh,
from
what did I do to
highway,
you?
So it's all right. I'll let it go. And the only other thing I want to say is I'm sure that the library board is very pleased because the 414 passed last night quite handily. So,
Overwhelmingly, yes.
yeah.
Yes. What did I take from you?
The tree lighting.
Oh, I'm
very excited to announce about the tree lighting.
Do it. Make sure people know.
No, keep it moving.
All right, Dean.
I'll keep it short. We're coming to, hopefully, to an end of our multi-year process of updating our zoning laws, and we're currently in the schedule of use, which I emailed out later on this afternoon, so it should be uploaded probably by tomorrow if you want to see the process or the progress. And so next Wednesday will be the next meeting. We'll probably finish up the schedule of use, and we will have an opportunity to go back over, make sure everything is correct before we start submitting for review by attorneys in the county and everything else.
Sir.
So I just want to add on for the rec committee a few things. One, this year has been a great year, and we've been saying it throughout a lot of this year with a lot of changes and offering different things. Obviously, we've got a ski club going on now. We also have a hiking club that's going to happen on November 12th at the 9 a.m. over at Wilcox Park at the Red Trail. I guess they're doing some carpooling. We're going to meet 8:30 at the town clerk's parking lot right over on the other side of the town hall complex. So I encourage everyone else. I understand that club was growing quite a bit. I think was it 12 people? 12 people last night. So that's pretty cool. But also trying
And
to
a dog.
And a dog. There you go. So some positiveness, right? Everyone's getting out. This is a great way. Listen, any of the rec committees, it's a great way to get out and meet your local residents. Also, anyone who is interested in getting onto the committee's been growing. We got a whole bunch of slew of exciting programs and stuff that we're going to try to do next year, and get some other ideas in there and want to run some kind of things. Get in touch with the Carol Mackin over the town clerk there, or you can find one of us on the board and we'll put you in the right direction. So I'm just very proud of a lot of the things that we were able to accomplish this year in the town, and showing that we're able to work together as a whole, which is nice for once. So.
Chris, we appreciate your support very much, the committee members, really. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Old business? I make a motion to approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that the town board approves resolution number 45 of 2022 titled, "A Resolution Adopting a Budget for the Fiscal Year Commencing January 1st, 2023 and ending December 31st, 2023, making appropriations for the conduct of the Town of Clinton government and establishing the rates of compensation for officers and employees for such period." Do I have a second?
Second.
I just want to say that since the approval of the preliminary budget, the only changes that we made, we had discussed, were in the Recreation Department, making it possible to hire an assistant recreation director. This final budget will allow the town to keep up with historic inflation while maintaining our vital services to the community. The tax rate for 2023 will see a 9.88% reduction from $2.11 per $1,000 of assessed value to $1.90. If this final budget does not pass for any reason, state law dictates that the last approved version of the budget will take effect. So that would be the preliminary budget that the town board approved on October 19th. Any other comments? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Well sanitation. So on September 8th, Well Sanitation notified the town that they would cease operating our transfer station on January 1st, 2023. This leaves us with a dilemma of figuring out how the town would like to move forward. An estimated cost for running the station, including garbage, recycling, and employees to run the station, is about $71,000 for 2023. The estimated income generated from the current fee structure and the total average weekly garbage estimate from Welsh is about $36,000. This would result in a $35,000 operations budget or deficit for 2023. At last month's meeting, we discussed other possibilities. I know Councilwoman Mostello was going to look into some options, but we need to make a decision, I believe, tonight on what we want to do, whether we're abandoning the transfer station or we're going to explore or start another option, so that we can let the town know with enough time to make plans. So, did you?
I was not very successful. I reached out to 3 companies, and I've spoken to 2, and then I have not heard back from anyone. But what I was investigating was not to take over the transfer station, because none of them will do that. They were very clear. What I was trying to find out is would they give a group buy, or would they give a discount for the whole town, knowing that there will be a number of residents. So I'm going to keep on that, because it doesn't really impact our discussion tonight, and it might help. But yeah, not great responses.
Yeah. I know this is not great news, but I don't think, as we're talking about the budget and inflation, I don't think we can add an extra $35,000 expense to our budget.
It's also not, as we discussed the first time we talked about it, adding that cost isn't really fair to the entire town, because there's
certain residents that pay for
only
their
certain
own.
residents use it. Not everyone does, and it's unfortunate, but
I would say too, and this is very anecdotal, but as you all know, we just finished an election season, so sometimes people are standing out at the transfer station campaigning, and from what has been noticed over the last few years is that the number of cars going to the transfer station has declined over the last few years, especially since COVID. Many people didn't want to go to the transfer station at COVID, so they got driveway service, and then they have not gone back to the transfer station since. We can do it at the final comment period, but yes, I'd be welcoming questions for that.
Well, if we do nothing, then basically people need to make their own arrangements.
Yes.
yes.
Okay, and they can do that while we're deciding what to do.
Sure, but we'd like to give the residents enough notice. Like, if we decide tonight that we're not going to run our own transfer station, then I want to start putting up signs at the transfer station next week saying, this is going away on January 1st. Welsh is the one that's backed out.
I was under the impression that it doesn't make sense for us to run our own transfer.
No, and it doesn't.
I don't think it does.
I thought that was a closed issue.
Yeah, well, sure.
But we never voted on it and made it official.
No, we've been still searching for
other options.
I just wanted to address, there's a couple emails that we had, and I think I'm on the same page as it's a tough thing, because the town, we're approving a budget that we went over the tax cap, and it was a tough one to do to begin with, but, obviously there's a lot of expenses that, like everyone else's, fuel costs and electric costs for the buildings, and just to name a few. But I have read a few emails from some of the residents that I do appreciate, and some of our older residents in particular, that, spec'd out a couple cases where it's tough, to maybe get that trash bin and recycle bin up and down the driveway, especially with the stuff. And I want them to know I acknowledge that, and I think the board acknowledges that as well. I think it's just a tough situation. And back in COVID, when they first shut us down for that, we all worked as a board and as a group, and also Melissa and Todd in the highway department, we came out for 2 weeks and we opened up and got where we worked, the board members all actually got out there and donated their time to try to help the transfer station. So one of the things that I did think it was kind of nice to do is get to know our residents and have that camaraderie with our residents and seeing them, because there was a lot of people. So there's a benefit, but unfortunately I'm on the same page, just where the cost, it's just financially not viable, and I think that's why even Welsh is pulling out. And I was hoping I spoke to the one guy, Scott, I think back then, about trying to get a better rate for all our residents and see if they would come in here and give them more of an incentive, and then people could opt in if they wanted to, per se. And they were not on it. They said, well, we already got a lot of the town, and that was their, kind of mentality, their business mentality, and says, well, they want to come, they're going to come to one of the 3 main of us, so.
I do want to say that this was a choice of Welsh. We didn't decide to end this relationship with them. They've decided to leave. So also though, I believe Welsh does have a senior discount if anyone's interested in saving some money there and you're eligible. There's a senior discount. They have different size cans. So like if you're living alone and you only have one bag of garbage a week, you can get very small cans. And if you're a senior, it should work out. I'm asking everyone to please just look out for your neighbors. If you have elderly neighbors that need help moving cans up and down the driveway, maybe help them out. Maybe let them throw their one bag a week in your can. I don't know.
Right, or share service.
Yeah,
Share, you know.
What about partnering with other towns?
Well, partnering with other towns would, so the problem with that is that other towns that have decided to move forward, like say Stanford, is losing $22,000 a year. So partnering with them, they would ask us to take on that part of that cost. Because they would be now bringing in more garbage so they would have a larger deficit. They would have, their dump fees would be larger, and I would assume it would increase some employee compensation. So then we would still be taking on a cost by partnering with another town.
Carol, I believe Carol said that Stanford will allow you to buy a out-of-town
Right.
permit
You
so
can
that
do
you
that.
could use their transfer station. And I'm
Yes.
sure it's a little more expensive than town residents, but it is an option, which
Yeah.
may or may not be less
And
expensive.
I think that's
than-
something we should look into too. So if you're on, this side of town, Stanford may be an option. If you're near Hyde Park, it might be an option.
It would be cheaper than doubling the price for people who decide to do it.
Sure.
I mean, one of the options we talked about was doubling the price.
Right, which I,
But if you do the $60 a year plus $5 a bag, and you only go a couple times a month, you're still going to come out ahead if you do that.
right.
Yeah, I'd like to look into whether Rhinebeck will allow people to buy out-of-town access to their transfer station that they run as well. So as of now, we're comfortable with saying we're out of the transfer station business as of January 1st. Okay. Where are we? New business. Dean or Catherine?
Make a motion, be approved, the following resolution. The town board authorizes the town clerk to advertise for sealed bids for highway materials, then sealed bids are due by 10 a.m. Monday, December 5th, and award at a regular town board meeting on Tuesday, December 13th, to the lowest responsible bidder whose bid has been filed in conformity with the notice. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. I make a motion to approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that the town board approves resolution number 46 of 2022, titled Introducing Proposed Local Law Number of 2022 of the Town of Clinton entitled Amendment to Section 250-31 of the Town Code, Alternate Care Facilities, and be it further resolved that a public hearing be held on the proposed law at the Town of Clinton Town Hall, 1215 Center Road, Rhinebeck, New York, on Tuesday, December 13th, 2022, at 6 p.m., at which hearing parties in interest and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Again, to clarify, this is just to have a public hearing.
Except
It's not
no.
approving.
Except it goes further than that, Dean. I originally thought that too, but when I read the resolution, it very clearly says, okay, what does it very clearly say? Oh, here it is. The town board of the town of Clinton has determined that a local law amending Chapter 250 of the town code in regard to the regulation of alternate care facilities is necessary and in the best interest of the town. And then it goes on. So it's
Well-
not just, we're not talking about something that is just
Well,
procedural.
no. Any local law we write would say at the beginning, this local law is being done because the town board has
This is-
decided blah, blah, blah.
We're not voting on the law tonight. All we're
I don't
doing
know.
is
Well,
we're introducing
read-
it so we can get it to public
I
discussion.
just read what's here, okay?
Well, that's-
I'm reading what's here. I don't know what it was intended to say, but this is what the words say to me. The words say to me that these are two separate resolutions.
Right, but the question would be,
That's what they
in
say to me.
any other law that was passed, or the words exactly the same? And I believe that they were.
That I don't know. That I don't
So
know.
I'm just saying, it's,
If we were voting on a public hearing, that's a procedural issue.
That's what we're doing.
So the motion I made is,
Not if
on-
it says this.
Yeah, but
Not if it says this.
the motion that
Not if it
Michael's
says-
making,
This law is what we're voting on. This resolution is what
We are
we're
not
voting
approving
not-
this tonight.
we're
We're
not
approving
voting on
a
it.
What it
public
says right
hearing.
here.
We are
No,
approving
it
a
says
public
right here.
hearing for this.
for that. Anytime
see
we,
it.
well,
I don't see
anytime
that.
we
I'm
put up a new law, we introduce
that.
the law of what it would be written as.
Yeah, you write it in the
When the
affirmative.
first process
So that's,
goes to
I guess that would
public
be my
hearing.
question. So when I wrote the short-term rental law, the whole law was there and we approved a public hearing for it. We weren't approving the short-term rental law that
Except-
night.
I can't speak for that since I wasn't on the board at the
Okay,
time.
the tree harvesting.
I may
law,
have
like-
felt the same way as I feel now. I can't put myself back in time to something I didn't do and say, well, that was okay.
All right.
That's all. But anyway.
I
let's
mean,
go
I
ahead-
understand your concern,
let's go
but
ahead
this
and
is
vote.
just establishing a public hearing at
Right.
6
We'll
PM
go
on
ahead and
December
vote.
13th.
I will go publicly and say we are not passing this law tonight, okay? This is not what the intent
Absolutely not.
is. So if anything comes back, let it be on me. We're just approving to have an open discussion so we can start discussing.
Right, so we can hear what everybody thinks.
Yeah, we want to hear what everybody thinks. Like, we really do.
Turn up.
We really do.
No.
I have no issue with that.
And I know I will. I trust I will.
If the second part of the resolution was simply the resolution, I have no issue with that. No issue with a public hearing. We should have a public hearing. That's not the part I'm having an issue with. I'm having an issue with this sentence right here.
All right.
But anyway,
So,
here you go.
roll call vote? Catherine?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Aye. Elliot?
No.
Chris?
Aye.
All right, motion carried. I make a motion that the town board approves the following resolution. Be it resolved that the town board approves resolution number 47 of 2022, authorizing the return of unused escrow funds. Is there a second?
Second.
I want to again thank Elliot and Kathy Gallinger and Arlene Campbell for doing the work of tracking down people that we have been holding on to their money, and I don't think we should be holding on to their money.
You're very welcome.
So we are returning it.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. I make a motion that the town board approves the following resolution. Be it resolved that the town board approves resolution number 48 of 2022 titled Support for the Development of the Natural Resources Inventory and authorizes the submission of an application for technical assistance to the Hudson River Estuary Program. Is there a second?
Second.
This is, in order for us to become bronze certified in the Climate Smart Communities Program, we have to do some priority actions, and a natural resources inventory is one of them. Hudson River Estuary will help us for free get it done. It will just require a lot of elbow grease on the part of the members of the task force, so that's what this is.
And, yeah, and there's already, those people have already said, I'm in.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
plenty of
everybody's
time.
ready to go.
Yeah.
So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, there was a special sheet, yeah. I make a motion to accept the letter of resignation of Ryan Mackin as laborer effective November 6, 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. I make a motion to accept the letter of resignation of Jamie Szynski as MEO effective November 6, 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just so you know, they're resigning as a technicality because we are now about to appoint them and give them promotions. I make a motion to extend the appointment of Tim Horton as seasonal groundskeeper from November 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022 at a rate of pay of $15.30 per hour for 24 hours per week, paid from code D5110.132. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to extend the appointment of Andy Cooley as seasonal groundskeeper from November 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2022 at a rate of pay of $15.30 per hour for 24 hours per week, paid from code D5110.132. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right, you're in the zone. I just want to jump in here and say that Andy and Tim are doing fabulous work on the cemetery.
They are a wonderful addition to the,
Yes,
to
absolutely.
the town campus.
Absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. I make a motion that the town board appoints Tim Lawler as full-time highway laborer effective November 7th, 2022 at a rate of pay as per the CSEA contract for $1 less than the starting contract rate for 2022 of $18.10 per hour for a period of 6 months or 1,000 hours starting November 7th, 2022. Full medical, eye, and dental coverage with an employee contribution of 15% and paid leave benefits as per the CSEA contract. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to promote Ryan Mackin to the position of MEO effective November 7, 2022, with a rate of pay as per CSEA contract of $21.15 per hour and full medical, eye, and dental coverage with an employee contribution of 15% with paid leave benefits as per the CSEA contract. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
And I make a motion to promote Jamie Szynski to the position of HMEO effective November 7, 2022, with a rate of pay as per CSEA contract of $24.19 per hour and full medical, eye, and dental coverage with an employee contribution of 15% with paid leave benefits as per the CSEA contract. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Councilman Michael.
Take a breath.
I make a motion, be it resolved, the town board approves the November general fund warrant vouchers number 511 through 564, totaling $48,507.12, and the November highway fund warrant vouchers number 247 through 277, totaling $90,013.34. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. I make a motion that the town board approves the following resolution. Be it resolved that the town board approves resolution number 49 of 2022, a motion to move funds at the November 9th, 2022 town board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. And I make a motion to approve the supervisor's report for October 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I bet people want to talk again. So I'm going to make a motion to open the meeting to public discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Same rules, 3 minutes. Now you can talk about anything, not just things on the agenda. So if you'd like to speak, the microphone's there. Yes, you had a question.
You already took the words out of my mouth about sharing with the Rhinebeck or Stanford.
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you state your name just so we know?
Sorry, I'm Deborah Valchar,
Oh, yeah,
and...
I knew I knew you.
Yeah, you came to... Anyway, I like the idea of sharing with the other towns. I have a parent in New Canaan, and they created their own transfer station. And the cost is, and we do our own pickup with Welsh, so I'm really surprised they're dropping it, but maybe the problem is it's not cost effective for them. And
Yeah.
so, given what we're paying, I can't imagine how we couldn't get the town to come together, letting them know, hey, could we raise it? And would Welsh reconsider, or do you think they're done? Do you think they're finished with?
So Welsh has backed out of the transfer station business with every town but 2. And we're one of those 2.
All right, so it's done deal. All right.
Yeah.
It's just a thought of, do we get Rhinebeck, do we get everybody together, and then,
I did a whole financial analysis of whether we could run our own, and I see why they're backing out. I mean, they lose money. They absolutely are losing
Yeah.
money on transfer stations.
or we'd have to raise the rate.
Yeah,
for the
and if we
individual.
double, like, say, if we had to double the price so that we wouldn't lose so much money as a town doing it,
Yeah.
we'd probably have more people just say, it's worth it to have driveway service. And, you
Yeah,
know.
but they're raising it, trust me. I see
Yeah,
the
oh,
bill.
I'm sure.
And I know it's costing them something, so it's not that we don't want them to make money, but,
Mm-hmm.
And Welch prefers home pickup
yeah, clearly.
than having
They're
people come to
making-
the
Yeah.
transfer station. Right.
So I didn't come up to talk about that. What I wanted to do was to raise it to the public about this aggressive STR expansion. And we as 30-year homeowners are really getting tired of these people who are literally investors. These are no community people. These are people who are buying these homes and turning them into STRs. And we're seeing an expansion in where we're living, where there's one owner who's decided to get together with other people and try to use their places, and it's becoming a business. So I feel like there's a hotel lodging business that's literally taking over Clinton. And so I don't mind the idea of someone who owns a home and says, hey, I want to rent it out for 3 weeks because we're going to Italy for a month and I'll make some money. I get that. But they're killing the community. And not only that, I have 20, 30-year-olds who are saying, I can't find a place to rent or even buy anymore because it's an STR. And so we're literally killing our communities with this. And we're not the only one. You know, we read about it all the time. But I just don't know if there's some way that we can raise the awareness or Is there a way to put a limit on how many of these go up? But it's becoming really obvious to a lot of us and our neighbors that these homes are empty. There's nobody around. They're transients. I'm sure they're fine people, but it's just, again, you're losing your neighborhood. And so I don't know what the solution is, but I feel like everyone is beginning to realize, wait a second, we're losing our towns.
So one of the safety nets that we tried to address some of the issues that you were talking about was to limit only 2 per person, organization, whatever, within the community.
Okay.
So that someone can't just come in and buy up the whole town and make it all
Okay.
an SDR.
Okay.
And there's also some issues where, well, I won't get into it. There's cases going on right now where someone tried to have 2 on the same property, and that wasn't allowed. So
No.
There's
Yeah.
somebody down the street who
It's
has
happening.
6.
Yes.
And, oh, by the way, if I may mention, I noticed a sign go up, because I know there's signs, across the road on somebody else's property who clearly they talked with each other and said, hey, put my unit on your website. I mean, this is just,
Yeah.
it's aggressive.
So,
So I didn't realize that. You can't have more than 2?
2 in the whole town.
So let's be clear, you're not allowed to have more than 2 permits, but we did talk about it while doing the law, like it costs $1,000 to get an LLC, so you start an
That's
LLC.
not enough.
Well, that's what I mean. You start an LLC, they get 2 permits, and you spend $1,000, get an LLC, and you have 2 more permits. I mean, there's ways around it. I will say, when we first wrote this law, we had an estimate of, I think, 90 properties in town acting as SDRs. I think we've given, I'm looking at Jeff here because he'd know better than I, but I think we've given permits for maybe 40 at most. At most. So it is a lot less than what we thought it was going to be.
Okay.
I recognize that when there are properties like, and I know which one is near you, that are very active, it is disturbing.
Yeah, and they are going so far as texting us, sending us notes saying their sister wants to buy your property. Hey, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but, and they're losing they think this is cute. They think this is fun. They think they're helping the community, when in reality, they're pulling properties off that, again, they're vacant, but they're also not available for everybody else
Oh,
to
sure,
rent.
and this has been a problem across the country.
Okay, yeah, no, and even,
So,
whatever.
I can't go into much detail because I don't have detail, but I have had discussions with people in town, people that work for our town government, about options for changing the short-term rental law to try and limit some of the issues.
Great.
I don't know that it'll be a fast solution, but we're going to try and get there.
That was my request, is there anything that you as the board, or even us as the community, to bring it to the awareness? Can one put out a what do they call it, just a notice to say, hey, sign up if you're not, if you're opposed to this, so that there's a way for the town to fight back and to preserve its community?
Yeah, I think one of the things that was a concern of most of us, that were on the board when we were writing it, definitely a concern for mine, because it was changing the dynamic of the town, and it becomes a business, right? So, and that's when we address 2 types, and there's 2 things I'm going to address here. One is type 1, type 2. Type 1 is if someone lives there, obviously it's a smaller basis, it's less strain. What you're talking about is the type 2, where people are buying and they're just renting it out to anyone. And we only had about 40 so far that signed up or went on there. And we're trying to get a handle on that, because I think there's a lot of them that are running. They're going around the law.
Yeah, they're under the
And it
radar.
also goes to, type 2s go to the planning board, they go through a zoning board process. There's regulations that will kind of go for like a site plan and everything else that would need to be done with that. And we got to find out those. If there's something that's popping up, and we have some access to different sites that we're doing. I know Jeff's been working on that as with our zoning and stuff like that. And yeah, I definitely agree.
Okay.
There's some issues that
Right.
need to
But
start
is there a way that, we have eyes and feet on the ground that we could use, because we know that there are people out there that are doing this that don't have permits. So what is the best way for residents to let us know?
Good
Are
question.
you, and it's going to be, it may be a little redundant, because we may have, oh no, they're already permitted, but
Oh, man, I'm really going to make Jeff mad now, but if you do have a problem with, a short-term rental in town, please email the
Jeff got my
CEO.
email. Hi, Jeff, nice to meet you. I just, I'm sorry, but again, I don't mind somebody having their business, but this is just over the top.
So rest assured, like, if you are signed up for town emails, I'm sure you will hear about it at some point.
Good,
But
I
we
am.
are, we are going to start exploring what we can do to make changes to the short-term rentals law
Okay,
to
great.
try to alleviate some of
All
this.
right, I'll take enough of yours.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mike, just a quick question. Anything on
Microphone.
electricity?
Microphone. Oh, yeah, well, I can do a quick recap. We had people from Jewel and here tonight to discuss what happened with the previous CCA contract and ways to move forward so that we don't end up in the same position that we were in previously. So we're going to start a process. It is no guarantee that we will enter into another CCA contract, but we are starting the process, informing residents that we are exploring it and may go to bid at some point. It's a few months long process to do this, to enter into another CCA agreement. They're trying to structure the agreement so that we are not inherently opposed with the supplier where, when we win, they lose, or when they win, we lose. They're trying to structure the payment scheme for the suppliers where they would get paid a small amount for every kilowatt hour used. And so that would put them on the same side as us. And they'd want to keep us happy, so they would give us lower rates. We hope that this is a good idea and that it would work, but there's months to go before we get there, obviously. They have a whole bidding process. And the first step is putting a statement on our website, which we will do in the next couple of days, advertising that we're exploring this. Yeah.
How is this, I don't see how this arrangement is different from the way it is now.
So the way it is now, we go out to bid, a third-party supplier gives us
Right.
their bid price, and that's it. And when it turns out, like it did recently, and it takes special circumstances like we're in now, but we were paying 6 cents a kilowatt hour, and then suddenly the market was asking for 18 to 20 cents a kilowatt hour, and Columbia was losing out massively. But if Columbia is guaranteed like a certain number of customers doing a certain amount of kilowatt hours, and they're going to get money for each one of those. Like, that's how Jewel gets paid. They get a fraction of a penny for every kilowatt hour used. And if
Doesn't Columbia do the same thing?
no, Columbia just buys that energy and sells it to us, and they unfortunately they had guaranteed us a rate that was much lower than what they had to buy it for.
They basically felt that they were going to, and I'm
Yeah.
going to be a
No, I'm with
broken
you.
record. They felt they can get more money on the other side, and they pulled out.
Yeah.
And this is that futures. They're buying futures, and they kind of, only difference is they're not committed to buy those futures. They can jump, or there's no protection to protect them from saying, hey, you sell this, you got to commit to this, and they had a way out. And there are penalties, I'm sure, that they're going to have.
When we made a monthly
It's not a
payment.
good idea.
When we made a monthly payment, part of that payment went to Columbia,
No, part of it, well, yes.
right?
So
So how is it any different? I don't see how it's any different. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just being.
Columbia was buying power for a certain price, and they were losing money on it because they were buying it for much more than they were selling it for. Also, as we talked about, is the 4-month adjusting rate thing.
Right, I could see that.
The basic structure is exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Basic structure.
But they will be guaranteed a certain amount of money.
Yeah, but it's the who, it's still the wholesaler
Right.
and the middleman, and then we're the
Right.
consumer. That is the same, but the
But the
pieces in
struct-
between are going to be
The
different.
structure is they'll get paid based on how much electricity usage there is, and then when they can adjust their price, they're not always going to be falling, they won't always be like way, way behind. The price adjusts with everything else. I know Chris is frowning at me. This is not a conversation for now.
I know. I'm sorry. I'll keep my
So-
mouth shut. It's a tough one.
Joule. Jewel Community Power. Any other comments? Yes, please, come on up.
Hi, everybody. Brad Cole.
Hi, bro.
I have a couple questions of clarification. I'm looking at amendment to section 250-31 of the town code, alternative care facilities. And in the piece of paper that I'm holding, it says paragraph 5, any increase in residential population, blah, 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 needs to go through a review and an approval process. Paraphrasing. And then underneath that, it says, we are amending this by basically saying in point 6 here, the section shall apply to alternative care facilities permitted by special use permit and underlying zoning, the blah, blah, blah. Again, to paraphrase and to skip through this, that an alternative care facility is really deemed in compliance with whatever the top paragraph says. So what I'm trying to understand here with this point, I can reread it if you want, but it basically sounds like, yes, you do review anybody who wants to change the population in that sense, except for alternative care facilities. Am I not reading this properly?
You're not reading that right. I want to say that we are obviously, have said it several times, we're going to have a public hearing on this, and but there were some blah, blah, blahs in there, with all due respect, that I think skipped over a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Special use permits means that the planning board can put a whole lot of rules on them. And I think this is the thing that we have to keep in mind. So we're moving in a direction where in our comprehensive plan and in our town code, it says that anything that is a pre-existing non-conforming use, we want to eliminate as soon as possible. This one has been pre-existing and non-conforming for many, many, many years. And we want to address that. And we want them to be conforming. We want them to be allowed. And a planning board can put rules on that permit. And right now, they're pre-existing non-conforming, and they can continue to do what they're doing. Right now, they're pre-existing and non-conforming, so they can continue to do what they're doing.
Cornerstone.
Cornerstone, yes.
That's 60 events.
And the second question would be, so what's coming up here? We're taking a vote on this? Is that in a month?
So no, in a month, there will be we're going to have a
public hearing.
We're going to have the actual text of the change to the town code. It should be published tomorrow, I assume, on the town website, or you seem to have a copy already. And we will have a public hearing on that. So questions, we'll listen to anybody from the community. We'll listen to anybody from Cornerstone. And at the end of that public hearing, if we decide we want to make some changes or we need to have more public hearings, we will do that. But we need to find a permanent solution to this. And right now, I don't think there's a permanent solution.
Okay. And the process is a number of public hearings or one public
hearing? It could be. We have to see what the next public hearing does. We can keep it open after that public hearing.
Okay.
But at the end of the next public hearing, like, if everybody feels like they've had their say, then we can close it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff.
Hi, Jeff Brandsburg. Maybe your answer to Brad's question answers this, but I don't understand. I thought that in order to make changes already, you had to apply to the planning board. If I want to expand my house, whatever, I have to apply to the planning board. So why is this even necessary?
Because right now our town code doesn't say that they have to apply for a special use permit or to make the changes that they want, because they can't get a special use permit.
I'm sorry,
they can't get a permit right now.
Right.
It's very convoluted and hard to explain.
It's just non-conforming, so it's kind of like out in limbo, and we're trying to bring stuff into compliance, and so that's in the zoning, the easiest way to say it, and it's definitely more for public hearing to get to there, but the ultimate goal is to try to find a long-term solution for everyone, including the residents, as well as Cornerstone. So if we can get everyone under conformity and get it to the planning board, it's going to create a much better environment for the residents alike. And they are a resident as well. They have property in here. Right. So there's a certain amount of that too. So we got to hear all sides and see what everyone says and how we have to amend it if we have to in public hearing. But so it's just the first step to try to find a solution, a long-term solution.
I understand.
Yeah.
But there are people who own property that are non-conforming properties in general, right?
Sure.
They already have to apply for, so how, I still don't understand how this is any different if the factor of being non-conforming is the important factor here. Anybody who owns a non-conforming property already has to apply for a building permit or whatever it may be. I just don't understand the reason. I also don't understand ignoring the ZBA rule, but that's a question for another time.
Yeah, I think these are discussions we're going to have at a public hearing.
Okay.
It's not a perfect example, but I'll throw this up as an example. So, on the other side of town, there was a junkyard.
Mm-hmm.
Junkyards are not allowed in our town, so it's a non-conforming use. The person could continue forever with that non-conforming use. In trying to bring things into conformity, we went into a negotiation with the property owner to change some things, but have a point certain when it will no longer operate at all. So the transfer of a title, for instance, will now terminate that junkyard's operation, and no other person can operate beyond that person's ownership a junkyard. Both sides agreed on it.
Right.
And it created a solution long-term for a use that was non-conforming.
But except remember, Dean, that what started that process was the fact that the owner wanted to make changes. If he hadn't come to the planning board and said, I want to do such and such, he could have gone on.
Well, that's what I said. It could have gone on forever.
As it was.
And actually what the person wanted to do, in my opinion.
Was an improvement, sure.
Was to take what would be a junkyard with cars leaking on the ground and try to bring it all into a building, and people were getting restrictions on putting up that building. So in the long term, we solved an environmental issue, we solved a non-conforming issue. There was many things that we took care in allowing for this forward movement.
The one comment I would have about your example.
I'm not saying it's perfect.
No. The only is that you said, we wanted to make sure that it would end at some point. I don't think that's the goal with Cornerstone. And in fact, all of the residents have told me themselves they do not want to put Cornerstone out of business.
Right.
So I don't think that is the goal.
I didn't throw that as an example of what we want to do.
I know. I heard it in the example, and I want to be clear. No one is advocating for that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jeff.
My name is Randy Sackheim, and
close to the mic.
I too am confused. You've already made a decision that they were going above and beyond what they were allowed to do. So why are we going through all this again? And you had just said that they are residents as well. I'm not going to disagree with that, but the people who are buying these houses that everybody is up in arms about for rentals, are they residents? And then why do you have rules about how many they can have? None of this is making sense to me. It seems like there's one rule for people who lawyer up, and there's other rules for people who don't. I thought that the decision was made and that they had to go back to what they were permitted at first for. Why are we doing this again?
I don't think we're going to have an answer that will satisfy you, to be honest, but this town board didn't make the decision, and the ZBA made a decision based on very exact parameters that they were allowed to operate in, which happens all the time with the ZBA. Yeah. Every decision they make is based on the letter of the town code. And say something comes up with a short-term rental law that we say a decision was made, and we're like, you know what? Maybe that wasn't so good. We should maybe change the short-term rental law, which we just discussed tonight. We're going to change it because it's not working the way we would intend it to work. And so I think the alternate care facilities law is not working the way we intend it to work, and so we think changes should be made.
And the only thing I want to say is, this isn't a thing on the zoning board, we're going.
Yeah, we are not
We're not going, first of all, we respect the zoning board. They had a certain guidelines. There's two of us on the board that have been on the zoning board for a while, before we got elected. So, they had to make a decision based off of the criteria they went to. And then it kind of pushes it back, but it doesn't solve the issue. It just says there's an issue going on, but it's not the end-all issue to correct it. And
Why isn't the solving, they go back to 68 beds where they were permitted to? I thought that was the solution. We don't want them to go away. We just want them to be in compliance, just like the rest of us have to do.
listen, I'm with you on that. I agree. We're trying to find a solution that's going to solve a bigger solution that's there, and that's how
the
we're going.
So no, okay, first of all, we're not debating this tonight, there's a public hearing next month.
Okay.
But there were things that led to this, complaints from residents that led to this, and the ZBA did not address any of those complaints in their decision. None of those complaints were addressed. And if we can find a way forward to address those complaints for the residents, please know that we will.
Sure.
We will do that. But this is not the place to debate it. This is not the public hearing.
Okay.
So it's time to move on. If you have other comments about it, I'm
No.
willing to hear it.
No. I hear you.
I have a question about the STR
Yeah.
overview. What is the process how long do you think it's going to take, and what is going to be the process?
To change the law?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just been initial conversations right now with what's been going on in zoning and with the building inspector. We've had initial conversations. I think I could probably start putting together some recommendations for the town board on STRs in the next month or so, and if we come up with some things that we'd like to change, we can introduce it within the next couple months.
Yeah. When it was first written, it took about 2 years? There was a lot
10
of
months.
thought, lot
10
of
months from beginning
process,
to end.
And there was a group of local residents that worked on it, right?
Group of the
We had planning board members, zoning board members, and then I sent it out to any residents that wanted a copy of it so that they could comment on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it makes sense to do similar thing to?
Yes, and there's gonna be
This review? I mean, or do you just leave it to the Zarin office to write it for us? I mean.
Well, one of you had a copy of the law tonight, so you all have a copy of the law, which means all of you can comment on this. No one is being shut out. No one is cut out of this process. And I kind of resent the accusation that you are, because we have never,
And also, who wrote the law? I mean, come on. That's not fair to any of us.
I mean, Cornerstone had no input on this, so,
Yeah.
I mean, your accusation is off base.
everyone has access to it. We are taking your comments. You can email me tomorrow. You can email me every day about it. I will read them. I'll read them into the record.
Okay,
No one is being shut out.
okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? I make a motion that we return to the regular order of business. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I make a motion that the town board adjourns the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. 8:01, Elliot. I'm so